All right, Dina, if you want to start recording, um,
Yeah.
we're going to get started. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I know everyone's busy and tired this time of night, so we'll try and keep it to the point and be able to answer everyone's questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Kaplan. My kids go to In-Town Jewish Preschool, where I've had the privilege to get to know Dena, our speaker tonight. I have two boys who are ages 2 and 4. And I actually told my son tonight that I'm going to be doing a parenting class, and that's why I can't put him to bed. And I'm going to learn how to be a better mommy. And he said, "So will you learn how to be nicer to me?" Which kind of leads us to the genesis of this, why we're going to have this class tonight. I told Dena, I saw Dena advertise a few weeks ago on Facebook that she was doing another class for a community in LA. And I said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're all home with our kids a lot. Can you do a class for our community as well? And so here we are. She agreed. Just to switch topics briefly, that if you don't know, tonight is actually the start of a holiday called Tisha B'Av. And it's one of the saddest days in the year in Jewish history. A lot of bad things happen. We've had the destruction of the first and second temple. The Jews were banished from Spain, just to name a few. And it kind of reminded me, while we're in the middle of parenting and a global pandemic, that, we can do hard things. And the Jewish people have done hard things and have moved on. And even though I'm home with my two boys a lot more than I had planned, and it's no picnic, I'll tell you that, there have been worse times and we have moved on. But let me turn it over to the real Torah scholar and our main attraction, our speaker, Dena Schusterman. I know many of you know Dena, but she founded In-Town Chabad 20 years ago, which includes In-Town Jewish Preschool. She speaks and she writes all for publications all across the country and for groups all across the country as well. And she's also a mom to 8 children and just became a grandmother a few months ago to her first grandchild. So Dena, I'll turn it over to you to welcome everyone, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much. And thank you, Melissa, for this inspiration and for pushing me. Thank you for joining and trusting what I can offer here. As Melissa said, it would be remiss if we didn't mention that tonight is Tisha B'Av. It's a National Jewish Day of Mourning. I made a post on Facebook about this, so you can read what I wrote there, but I'll just share a little that, we behave as mourners beginning tonight for 25 hours. We are mourning the collective trauma and anxiety and sadness and despair that we have been through as a people. We sit on the floor, we don't wash or bathe or eat, and this 9th of Av has been observed through the millennia, and it's this day that was chosen because, as Melissa said, bad things have happened, including the destruction of both of the temples. And now we're in pandemic 2020, and perhaps what is different is that for the first time, we're here on Tisha B'Av, and the whole world is not blaming us for their problems. And actually, we're in unity with the world, with our problems. And after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, we're promised that that's not the end of the world. That's not, the way we're living is not the way it's supposed to be. C'est la vie. The temple was destroyed. Go figure it out, Judaism out for yourself. We're supposed to have this redemption. And when you think about redemption, think about this. I don't want you to think about this new, utopia or some kind of world that we can't imagine. Think of somebody sneezing in Wuhan, China, and the entire world is affected. And that's what redemption looks like in the positive, that my deeds affect you and your deeds affect me because there is unity in the world. We understand, we're talking about parenting tonight. You know what Mashiach, the Jewish word Mashiach means? It means that when my child has a tantrum, I don't just see it as this fragmentation of them making me crazy or getting me angry. I see it as a piece of their growth. I see it as a part of their personality. The whole picture is clear for me. That's what redemption is. Okay, so the obvious is that I'm not a neuroscientist, and I'm not either a profound Torah scholar. I do study a lot of Torah, I try at least. But my personal commitment during this time of the pandemic was to be a helper, right? Look for the helper. So I made that commitment to be a helper. And I asked myself, what can I contribute? And I am not benefiting anyone if I say, oh, I'm not a neuroscientist, I have nothing to share, because at the end of the day, I don't have a PhD after my name, but I'm not either giving you any advice that you need to get from someone with a PhD. For that, please go to someone with a PhD. I realize what I can contribute is that I do have a lab, and I have awesome peer review from my coworkers and my wonderful 8 experiments. I mean, experience. I have a ton of trial and error. And so perhaps I have something to share. And we are all living through unprecedented times for our generation. None of us signed up for this. We were not prepared physically, mentally, or emotionally, mirroring our government. So we need to make space for this reality, the reality of what we are living through. These are hard times. It is challenging on a good day to be a decent parent, and it's extra difficult right now. So I just want to make this disclaimer that for all the real issues of mental health or extreme defiance or anything that is not sitting right with you about your marriage, about your personal well-being or your children, it's absolutely imperative that you speak to a professional, somebody with real letters after their name. The other thing is, I'll keep saying this, but be kind to yourself, be forgiving. I'm here, mom to mom and dad, letting you know what's worked for me. And a lot of what I say is piggybacking on the brain research of Dr. Becky Bailey and the conscious discipline method. And then what resonated with me so much was that I could continuously see Torah wisdom. And I continue to learn from this that where the most profound systemic change is happening in how I view myself and how I view children and this process of parenting. In the past, whenever I was navigating parenting, I would look for the right things to say. I thought there must be, what am I supposed to say now? And I found myself just paralyzed if I didn't know the right things to say. But now I know the right way to think. And if you know the right way to think, naturally, you're going to know the right things to say. So I agree that parenting should and could be intuitive. It is also an art. And the main tools of this artistry are faith and trust. So let's ask this. Why should we not parent as it's been done for generations? So, the 90s Scorpion song, Listening for the Winds of Change. It's a beautiful song. So things have changed. Our children are profoundly more in touch with their feelings than we were as children. And this is not necessarily something that we taught to them. It is actually a generational thing. It's picked up by osmosis. So there's no escaping the reality that these emotionally intelligent humans that live in your house, they sometimes understand you and your mood better than you. It's crazy. So we are so far removed socially and emotionally and environmentally from the way you and I were parented, which perhaps you want to say it was good enough, or even perhaps you think your parents did a great job. And let me tell you something. The clue that you know if your parents did a great job is if parenting is easier for you, because the things they did are inside of you. So if you're having an easier time at this, it's because your parents did a really good job. So good for them. My parents never picked up a single parenting book. They did a good job, but we live in a profoundly different world with the internet, social media. So we've got to parent differently. 90% of modern day parenting is keeping your kids away from your smartphone, right? And nothing will make you into a better person than being a parent. So I started thinking about maybe the number one commandment in the Torah, the reason it's there is to be fruitful and multiply, is, by the way, in the process of being a parent, you will mature, you will gain patience, you will become compassionate, you will learn empathy, you will learn true love, you will learn about acceptance, self-awareness, and you're going to become a better contributor to society as a whole, all through parenting. This sounds easy, right? So parenting is the ultimate sacrifice of your time, your resources, but it teaches you far more about the world. And when you learn about the world, this has ripple effects into, when you change this in your home, it has ripple effects around the world. So you might be thinking, we had so much fun making that baby. Perhaps we were tricked into thinking that raising it would be fun too. And I know it wasn't easy for everybody to get pregnant. But guess what? Some people have a hard time getting pregnant and easy time raising kids. And some people have an easy time getting pregnant and a really hard time raising kids. So I want to say two more things, or three. It is said that expectations are premeditated resentments. So if you had expectations that parenting would be easy, you are already so resentful of your children. Not a great place to start at. So let's get rid of all the expectations so that we don't have resentments. And let me be the first one to break it to you. Parenting is not easy. There are no shortcuts. There are no tricks. There are only tools, and we need tools. So we have to use every bit of our own coping skills, therapy, digging deep, and we have to, right now in this pandemic, go through the grieving process. And again, now we have another setback, which is the fact that our children might not be going back to school right away. You know, I was saying this joke at the beginning of the summer, I'll quote myself: sending your kids to summer camp teaches them important life lessons, like you can deal with your problems by sending them to summer camp or school. But what I want to share today is some big picture ideas of modern day parenting. Another thing is, we're going to start with the questions in a minute, is that consciousness is an integral part of Judaism and living in general, living a holistic and healthy life. Awareness is the first step in any solution. So if you're on this call, you're conscious, you're aware. I am aware that my children might be having a hard time right now. What can I do about it? So the first thing is, I want to start with, is that if I am not for myself, who will be for me? So think about this the entire time when you're thinking about your children and parenting. The only person I can control or change is myself. It says this in the Torah, and it's a scientific fact. So you can protest, you can petition, you can argue, you can get mad, you can take signs, and you can go out in the street. But at the end of the day, all the roads lead back to you. How do I change? The most powerful connection between Torah and neuroscience is the power of free will. Bechira chafshit. Science recognizes you can't change anyone. You can only change yourself. And this is what Torah tells us. You're up, Melissa. That was my very short intro.
Thank you, Dena. That was all really helpful. And I think it really sets the stage for it's going to be a discussion tonight, as we alluded to on our flyer. But before I start asking a few questions that were submitted to me ahead of time, I want to let you know that we do want this to be interactive. So please feel free to use the chat function and ask questions. If you want Dena to elaborate on something, I mean, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and so will Dena. So we will definitely want to include more questions than what we already have prepared. But Dena, that was a really good segue into our first question, because at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were like home our first 2 weeks, that was probably the hardest time for me. And it was actually really nice. Dena reached out to me and asked how I was doing. And we started a discussion about Becky Bailey's 7 Powers of Parenting and what conscious discipline is. And I always heard conscious discipline talked about it in Town Jewish Preschool, but to be honest, I really didn't know what it was. Dena, could you kind of give us an overview of this guiding theory that you use and the preschool uses, and what is conscious discipline and who is Becky Bailey?
Okay, so I'm not going to go into who Becky Bailey is. You can just Google her, but she's
her theory.
She's a neuroscientist studying how the brain works and how it affects our interactions with our children for the last 20 years. I've been saying the last 20 years for many years, so it's longer than that. So the 7 powers for conscious adults. The biggest threat to a child's sense of safety is an out-of-control adult. The key to safety is a conscious, mindful adult. That means you have to have composure. You have to get it, basically, you got to get it together, girl. So, guy. So for children to think, for children to function, they need to feel safe, okay? So we have 7 powers to make our children feel safe. And these are powers that we have to work on for ourselves. So and I can send this afterwards, and whoever wants can email me or message me. So the first power is the power of composure, perception, okay? The big idea is composure is the willingness to change our internal state from upset to calm. Composure is self-control in action. It is a prerequisite skill adults need before disciplining children. It requires us to be the person we want them to become. This is the essence of parenting. No one can make you angry without your permission. You can put that in your kitchen on a sign. Q-tip, quit taking it personally. This is not just for parenting, right? You're going to realize that everything I'm saying here has to do with self-growth, okay? Now, this is really important. It is happening in front of you. It is not happening to you. So when your child, you just gave your kid a great day, you took them to the pool during Corona, you remembered their masks, you kept them socially distant, you gave them a great day, they come home and they melt on the floor, and you know what you want to do? You want to lecture them. You don't appreciate No, no, no. They're not getting back at you for everything. It's just happening in front of you. It's not happening to you. This is really important. Instead of saying to a child, you are making me late, you say, it's late, we need to leave. That's a shift, because this business of you're making me late means that I'm in control of you, you're not in control of you. So it's just it's a wording, it's a language shift. This is not happening to me, it's happening in front of me. I'm in control. How do you get in control? Well, we'll talk about that. Deep breaths. Okay. The next one is the power of unity. Okay. That is the power of the skill of encouragement. We are all in this together. Empathizing with your child. You were hoping that even though I took you to the pool and I found your mask and I kept track of everything and I bought you pizza, that we would also have 17 scoops of ice cream. You were hoping that. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. I can't give you 17, or it's not healthy, or whatever. You were hoping that. It is, I feel you, but I don't get caught up with you. Now, this is another slogan you can put in your kitchen. You don't catch their crazy, okay? We're in this together, but I don't need to catch your crazy. Just because you're going crazy doesn't mean I need to go crazy. Now, it works the other way around. Your kids will catch your crazy, okay? So the goal of this unity of encouragement is to perceive compassionately and offer compassion to others and to ourselves. The next big idea is the power of attention, okay? This is the skill of assertiveness. What we focus on, we get more of. So if you focus on, I can see you got that by yourself. You want them to get things by themselves more. You put your shoes on. You were nice to your brother. We're not judging. We are being assertive, and we are paying attention to what's going on. It's also paying attention instead of get off the table, get off the table. The table's really fun to climb on. I wonder what else we could climb on, because we cannot climb on the table. So you are paying attention and you're being assertive, but you're not letting them do what they want necessarily. Of course not, okay? So the goal is to create images of expected behavior in a child's brain, okay? The next power is the power of free will, which is the skill of choices, okay? The only person you can change is you. You can connect and guide with your child instead of force and coerce. How do you do this? Through changing yourself. It is a cornerstone of Jewish thought that each person has free will to make all moral and ethical decisions. So do our children. Now, this doesn't apply so much to young children because they don't really have a lot of choices. They have a choice. Do you want me to brush your teeth right now? Or do you want daddy to brush your teeth right now? Oh, big choice all of a sudden. Should we close the video now? Or do you want me to close the video in 3 minutes? Oh, 3 minutes, big choice, right? But you're giving them this idea that they can make choices. Those are two equally agreeable choices to you as the parent. So our children, God does not force or coerce us. He guides us through the Torah, through these boundaries of Torah and mitzvos, and then he seeks connection through us, through his Torah and mitzvos. So we ought to do the same for our children. So I just want to give you an example of what this looks like. When I say to myself, I'm sitting in bed at night next to my husband and we are having pillow talk, and I'm saying, I don't know, we got to get Sam to brush his teeth. No, I don't know if any of you have Sams. No, some of you have Sams. I'm not talking about your Sam. I've got to get Sam to brush his teeth. How do we get him? So what neurologically happens is your brain starts searching for manipulative ways to get Sam to brush his teeth. If instead all you do is change your words and you say, I would like to help Sam appreciate that he needs to brush his teeth, all of a sudden your brain starts looking for all these creative and helpful ways to help Sam brush his teeth. That is the power of free will, the skill of choices. The goal is learning to connect and guide instead of force and coerce. Okay, the next power we have is the power of kabbalat ol, which is acceptance, okay? This is the skill of empathy. The moment is as the moment is. Be in that moment. God created this moment for you to work through. It is accepting it. It is growing from it. It's happening in front of you. It's not happening to you. Don't catch the crazy. Don't take it personally. All of this is going through your mind. Acceptance as opposed to denial, not acceptance in order to feel defeat. So we often see parents who don't accept the moment, so they're bribing their children and happying them up instead of allowing them to be in the moment and cry and feel their feelings. Now, you can have whatever feelings you want. You cannot do whatever actions you want. That's also part of the assertiveness. So you can be as upset as you want. You can't hit me and scratch me while you're upset, because we don't hurt and hit and scratch people. So if we don't teach our children this skill of acceptance and empathy, we end up with addiction. Small addictions like shopping or Netflix, or big addictions that we don't even want to talk about, but like there's a lot of big addictions out there. Okay, so the goal here is to learn to respond to what life offers instead of attempting to make the world go our way. How's that working for you and the world going your way? Not so well, right? Okay, the next power is the power of love, okay? Now, this is how you bring out the best in people, is you love them. And that's how you bring them to their best self. You choose to see the best in others. It's called positive intent. My favorite quote for this is, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So what do you want to think about for your child? Do you want to think that they can? Do you want to accept them and embrace them with love? Because guess what? That's what you're going to get back at you, all of that love. What you offer to others, you experience in yourself. The power of love scientifically allows you to access your frontal lobe. This is the part of the brain we want them to get through. This is where they make decisions. This takes many years to mature, but we want to give them neural pathways to eventually get there. That is done through love. Children cannot behave differently until they are seen differently. So if they are seen with love, the way you learn to love people is when you focus on their strengths. Think loving thoughts about your child and you will be right eventually. I'm not telling you to be in denial, but if you don't know what happened and you're making stories up about your child, make up good stories about them, okay? I just want to give you an example about how this love works. You can have a toddler. How many of you have two children close in age? So that toddler the baby goes up to the toddler and like yanks a chunk of hair. This happened to two of my kids, okay? Yanks a chunk of hair. If you're constantly berating and seeing negative, your child's gonna say, he hates me, get rid of him, the baby hates me, I don't love the baby. But if you're constantly seeing the best, if you're constantly leading with love, you know what that toddler is gonna say? He doesn't know what else to do. He's gonna give the baby the benefit of the doubt. Watch it happen. So the goal is seeing the best in others keeps us in the higher realms of our brain so we can consciously respond instead of unconsciously react to life events, okay? Now, we have the last power is the power of intention. It's the skill of consequences. Mistakes are opportunities to learn, but it doesn't mean there are not consequences to our mistakes. Oops instead of blame, okay? So the goal here is to teach a new skill rather than punishing others for lacking skills we think they should possess by now. We help their children learn from their mistakes through natural consequences. Okay, Those are the 7 powers: perception, composure, unity and encouragement, attention, assertiveness, free choices, free will, which is the power of choices, acceptance, which is empathy, love, positive intent, intention, which is the skill of consequences.
Wow, Dena, that was incredibly helpful. I definitely took a lot of notes because I know sometimes I parent by bribing and rewarding. Um, but let's kind of circle back to, our topic on parenting in this pandemic. And a big question on a lot of parents' mind, and they were submitted to me, was, are our children going to be okay at the end of this? We're in the middle of a global pandemic. Our kids are missing school. Activities are canceled and everyone's wearing masks. Will they be okay? Kind of a big question.
Right.
Who knows?
Okay. So the first thing is, let's all take a few deep breaths, because that's a really heavy question. Breath is literally the stuff of life. It is how we gain our composure. It says in the Torah that God then formed man out of dust of the ground, and he blew into his nostrils a soul of life, and man became a living being. So when we blow in and we blow out, we recreate ourselves as a human, okay? Viktor Frankl famously said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Are our children going to be okay? Are you okay? We are the mirror that we reflect back to our children. What they see in us, they reflect back to the world. I took my kids to camp. My kids did go to camp. They went to camp for 2 weeks in Cobb. They had 4 weeks, and all the counselors took tests before and after. Nobody had COVID. Thank God. And on our way to Cobb, which is far, I listened to Wow in the World. We hadn't listened to Wow in the World in a really long time. Here's a little plug for Wow in the World. Wow in the World with Guy Raz and Mindy. And so we hadn't listened to it in a really long time because we hadn't been in the car in a really long time. So we chanced upon this podcast. And this podcast was speaking about birds who are becoming extinct. There's a lot of challenges to their habitats. And they were saying that if they were flexible in their eating and their foraging, then they were less vulnerable to extinction. So there were these researchers in Spain and Montreal, and they realized that birds that were capable of adapting and changing to their surroundings had a better chance of survival of their species. So let me tell you some examples, okay? The rufous tree bird in Southeast Asia, which usually eats fruits and nuts, was eating fire. What does that mean? There was this temple in, temple in Gujarat, India, that every night would set out these candles with butter-based wax, okay? These birds no longer had the food they were used to. They were swooping in, picking up the candles, shaking out the fire, and eating the butter. Then they found birds, the finch bird, which is native to Barbados. Now, Barbados was built up. They lost their natural habitat. They could no longer eat what they were normally eating, seeds and certain plants. So these birds learned how to swoop into hotels. They learned how to open sugar packs. They even learned how to take dog food, put it in the water, smush it up, and feed it to their babies. They learned how to open sugar packs and feed it to their babies. So what am I telling you here? Birds who have tiny brains are learning to adapt. Our children are resilient. Their brains are rewiring constantly. It's called neuroplasticity. It is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This happens on a daily basis. So we learned from Passover Shani, which was not so long ago, that nothing is lost. Even their 2020-2021 school year, it's not lost. It was not a failure. You're not a failure. They're not a failure. The other thing I want to just touch upon here is, again, that concept of positive intent, how we think, judging yourself favorably, judging the circumstances favorably. So if you're depressed or angry or you're feeling defeat as it relates to this situation or your parenting, you are hurting the situation. So take care of that for yourself, because positive thoughts and feelings do a tremendous amount towards getting the outcomes we want. And we want our children to thrive through this, not sink. So get outside of your family unit, think about others, and don't make yourself into a victim. Don't have, if your children hear you talking like this is crazy. We live in a crazy environment. I don't know what's going on. I can't believe we have to do this. The message your kids get is like, we're all victims. I'm a victim. My parents are victims. My parents have no control. The other thing your kids can hear you say is like, this is really difficult. Nobody really knows what's going on, but we're going to stay safe. And this is what our family's doing to stay safe. Do you hear the difference in how that messaging is coming across? The second messaging is like empowerment. Like, this is what we're doing for ourselves. Not everybody knows what's going on. It's very confusing times, but we've got this. Now, again, if you don't have it, you need to seek professional help.
Dena, I think that actually segues really well into our next question, that now that I'm home with our kids, my kids and everyone else is home with their kids more than they planned, a lot of us think we didn't sign up for this, full-time parenting during the middle of a global pandemic. How do we cope? What can I do to have an attitude shift? I know you touched on this, but maybe you can kind of give us a little bit more how to change our mindsets.
Okay. So first of all, I didn't mention this before, but there's an 80-20 rule in parenting at any time, that mindful, appropriate parent-child interactions done right, or mostly right, is all we can hope for. So if your kids are on the computer too much, it's okay. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody was expecting you to be perfect. When God created the world, he said, Tov. It was good. Day 1 was good. Day 2 was good. On day 3 and day 6, God said Tov Ma'od. So the Zohar, which is Kabbalistic writing, says that Tov, good, is the angel of life. Tov Ma'od is the angel of death. That's strange. Why is very good the angel of death? You know why very good is the angel of death? Because when you want to do something well, that's great. But when you start dabbling in perfectionism, that is the death of the whole movement that you're into. Whatever it is you want to do, if you think you need to be perfect at it, that is the angel of death. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Now, about a mind shift. I want to think about this. We came here as a Jewish community you said big, Torah and science, okay? So as we are not a body, we are a soul that lives inside of a body. Part of that body is our brain. We learn with our brain how to negotiate between the body and soul, okay? A body wants to relax, to drink a martini, get out of Corona, go back to real life, and never speak of this again, right? But your soul, it wants to grow through this process. Especially during these challenging times, your soul wants to find meaning. If you are left with big questions, you should know you're in good company. If God's ways are incomprehensible to you, as they often are, especially when something tragic happens, right? Rarely do we question the universe when all is going right? We deliver this package, this healthy baby. Nobody looks and says, how is this possible? So when things are going wrong and when we're questioning God, please try to remember that God is infinite. So don't try to fit infinity into that box that is your brain. It's an awesome brain, but it cannot contain infinity, nor should it be expected to. So if you can be aware of this, accept the reality that we don't know the reason, but hopefully you can find the space to sit comfortably in trust and in faith. Let God take the wheel. He has the reason. And this same tension actually exists in our parenting. This tension that we're feeling with our attitude is the same tension that our kids feel towards us. We want our children to live a meaningful life, and they don't always understand how our adult decisions work. So if you could take a moment and be in touch with your soul, take a deep breath, and take perspective from the lens of self-growth. Accepting that we want our children to have a meaningful life, and it's not the same as an easy life. This is what we're going through right now. This is hard for us to understand. Life is hard for our children to understand. But you know what? The greatest predictor of success in life is self-control. It's being able to control our thoughts, accepting things. On the other hand, Appreciate the easy moments, accept them. Don't only get philosophical when life is rough. And then think about it. I love this quote from Leonard Cohen: ring the bells that can still ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Through our hardest moments comes the most growth, light, love, conviction, our expansiveness, our success, satisfaction. And that's how you can choose to frame this time. Connection is key. Don't disconnect from your children. So if you need your own time, that's very different. Take your own time, but don't consistently push them away. So carve out time for yourself. Hopefully you have a spouse. Hopefully there's someone you can leave your children with. Don't keep pushing your children away. You need to keep connecting with your children. As hard as it is for you, it's harder for them. Put on your oxygen mask first, then put it on your child, right? That's how we have to think of this. We have to think of this as, I'm definitely taking care of myself so that I can take care of my children. Think about it. If you were a driver for an ambulance and you were low on gas and you could not make it to where you needed to make it, would you say, take it, yeah. Would you say, I can't stop for gas. I'm running to save someone's life. But if you're never going to get there to save their life, then what was your purpose? You need to stop for gas. How can you be helpful if you've not helped yourself first? So whether that means meditation or prayer or therapy or finding meaning, again, get out of your own dizzying self-absorption. Lead by example. This is what we do when the going gets rough, because your children are watching you. And mostly through their self-conscious. Like, this is going to come out for them in 20 years from now, in a good way. And get off the TV. Like, turn off the news. What could I say?
Dena, that was really helpful. And just so you all know, Dena and I actually spoke about this, in March and in April, and she really inspired me to start exercising and take a moment for myself to get fresh air when things got really hard, when we couldn't leave our house, for days on end. And so I think, I've taken this advice to heart. So I just thank you, Dena. It's really helpful. I just want to give a reminder to everyone that if you have any other questions or thoughts, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it.
You should keep an eye on the chat, thank you, because I'm not.
Yes, we don't have any chat yet, so feel free to chat if you want to chat, everyone. So kind of switching gears a little bit, a lot of parents wrote to me, especially who have the younger kids, the 2-year-old and 3-year-old age group, about setting boundaries for their children. For example, Dena, you spoke about this screen time. How do we have quiet time? How do we deal with our children when they're showing independence or more like defiance, tantrums, kind of those kind of things, etc. And kind of maybe you can give us some framework to deal with kind of putting the conscious discipline into action.
Okay, so good question. And I'm not going to answer every situation. Every situation has its own unique circumstance. But think about a child's brain. Okay, your child's brain is not developed fully until they're like 21 or 24. So your child does not have access to rational thinking the way you do. They're living down here in their reptilian brain, which all they can think of is fight or flight. Like, am I safe? Let me get out of here. So that's what that tantrum is about. Like, I don't even know how to get it. So when your child is tantruming, if you're yelling at them or getting nervous or you're catching they're crazy, it's just ratcheting it up. They feel less safe. They're going deeper into their reptilian brain, as opposed to saying, you're upset. I see you. I'm with you. You're safe. You're safe. Stop saying I'm safe, mommy. You always say that. I know, but you're safe. Okay, I'll stop saying that. As they get older, they're going to tell you to shut up, but that doesn't mean you have to catch their crazy. Just continue, you're safe. Or at a certain point, you can say, your voice can match my voice. When your voice matches my voice, I'm happy to continue talking. As opposed to what I grew up with was like, stop that chutzpah or stop that back talk. Like, that just ratchets, this works so well. I wish I knew this tip years ago. Just when your voice matches, no sarcasm. When your voice matches my voice, I'm ready to talk. And this is like for like a 6, 7-year-old. So your children are not mature enough. Again, that tantrum is happening in front of you. Quiet time, you are the parent. You can you can say, not demand, you can say that this is what our day is going to look like. But again, you have to make a child feel safe. So we're going to plan out our day. we're going to have this computer time, we're going to have this baking time, we're going to be on the computer, we're going to watch a video here, we're going to talk to grandma on iPhone here, we're going to do art here, and we're going to be quiet here. So again, if that, and that should always be before computer time. So the natural consequence is, oops, we didn't have quiet time, we're not having computer time. You're not getting back at them. It's just the natural consequence. Tomorrow, they're going to be quiet during quiet time. But again, set up the expectations. Like, is quiet time without a book? You have to have books in the room, tapes in the room, have something that it makes it work for them. You have to use your power of assertiveness here with all of these things with your children. All of those powers help you. Your power of assertiveness is the thing that is the thing that tells you that you are the parent, and you are going to tell them that you are going to help them here. Make eye contact when you give that demand. Focus on what the things that you want to see. The basic 10, I'm going to talk more like big idea here for just a minute. The basic tenet of Tanya, which is Jewish philosophy, Chabad philosophy, is that the heart rules the mind. The mind rules the heart, right? It's very popular today. I think there's a pop song, the heart wants what the heart wants, but that's a recipe for emotional mayhem. When your child doesn't have defined boundaries, like quiet time, like a certain amount of screen time, and their own dependence, then they have emotional mayhem and they don't feel safe. Okay. So again, it's not happening to you, it's happening in front of you. Be curious with your children. Wonder why that quiet time is not working. Why are they speaking to you that way? What's going on for them? So to be clear, the heart, love, and connection is at the heart of it all. But to get there, we have to get there through our brain, okay? Again, composure. So some of composure strategies here are, because we need our composure when this happens. My job is to keep you safe. Your job is to help keep it that way, okay? So when there's things your kids are climbing, listen, buddy, we're not gonna climb on the table today because it's not safe. This will sound different at each age and stage, but that's what it's about. My job is to keep you safe. You wanna go out all night, you wanna sit on TikTok all night, it's not safe, it's not good for you. That's my job. What about be a star? Stop, take a breath, and relax. Say to yourself, I'm safe. Keep breathing. I can handle this. Remember, put your oxygen mask on yourself first. And then you say to your child, you're safe. Breathe with me. You can handle this. I cannot tell you how many times I've calmed down a crying, hysterical child by just saying into their ear, you're safe. You're safe. You're safe. It really works. It doesn't work. It's not as seamless with, teenagers or pre-teenagers, but it still works. You got to be consistent. Create a safe space for your child. The brain functions optimally when the child feels safe.
Dena, maybe you can kind of expand it. Like someone just messaged me for kind of the younger children. If they're not listening, they're not taking you seriously. They laugh when you try and set boundaries and give and use these type of guidelines. Is there something else we can kind of
so you have to go back. Yeah, you have to go back to the self. Like, am I doing this am I constantly making jokes with my children? Are the boundaries undefined for them? Do they not know what it looks like when your child is not your buddy? So if you're constantly buddying with your child, that's very confusing. You love your child. You love them with every essence of your being. That is a much higher level than buddy. So we minimize our relationship when we call our child buddy. Just the words buddy is like, it's so confusing. Wait, I'm your buddy? That means I can laugh at what you'd say to me. We're not our children's buddy. I feel like this has really gotten lost. This is something from what our parents knew and that we knew as children. It didn't feel so good, but we can do it better, meaning we can have that same intention, which is we're not our buddy. We're much greater than our buddy, but it can feel better. So it's about assertiveness. It's about knowing that this is how I keep my child safe. This is what's best. So if my child is laughing at me, that's because my child's perfectly normal, because they're reacting to what I am doing, what I am causing in them. So again, if this sounds like I'm blaming the parent, I absolutely am. So, we have to look inside ourselves. Where am I giving my child? Like, think of your office. Which boss did you feel like you could be so sassy with? Was that the boss that came in and made all these sassy jokes with you? Was there a lack of decorum? And again, you can have somebody who's so professional and so respectful and so kind. So this is not coldness. That, don't mistake decorum for coldness. Assertiveness, it's loving. It's actually much better for your child. When your child is disrespectful and laughs at you, they are feeling so unsafe. When they listen, they are feeling safe.
Yeah, that's good advice. Kind of speaking of your image as a parent, it leads me on to my next question. As you all know, we know pretty well that we live in the age of Instagram and Facebook, where all the parents seem very perfect day to day. How do I know what I'm doing is right for my child? A, without comparing them to my friends' children, or B, without being pressured by society's norms, by what other people are doing?
Okay, these are great questions, and it's really like an easy answer here. And that is that your children are given to you as a gift. Okay? That it's really, first thing, keep that in front of your mind, that you don't own these. They're not your chattel. They're not yours. They are given to you as a gift to hold and honor and take care of. Okay? So if you're feeling outside pressure about your child, check in with yourself and say, is this about my ego? If somehow, am I not matching up because this is really what my child needs? Like, if you all of a sudden see everybody signed up for, soccer, and your child never even asked you to sign up for soccer. So clearly, ding, ding, your child doesn't want to go to soccer because they know their friends are in soccer, but you need your child in soccer because that's what everyone's doing. So is it about what's best for your child, or is this about your own ego? And if it's about your own ego, you got to chuck that at the door. And this goes, you know when it's real pressure because you failed something. So sometimes you get pressure from outside. It's called kinat sofrim. Like, you're allowed to be jealous, so to speak, of somebody who is wiser than you or smarter than you. So if you see a parent did something, or they're taking their children to a certain therapy or after school activity, you're like, I really failed there. My kid's been asking about this. So you know the difference between fake pressure, which is your ego, or check in with yourself. Be aware that there could be fake pressure, which comes from ego, and real pressure, which is, I want to do better and not doing enough. And this goes back to the power of free will and choices. You cannot connect and guide. Instead, you need to not force and coerce, instead connect and guide. So if you're forcing and coercing these things, even to fit into those little squares on Instagram, that's ego.
I think that rings true to a lot of people in this day and age, when you see all the perfect parents. So it's a good mental check and a good reminder about your ego, and not making this about you, but doing right by your children. Dena,
So
this kind of brings me to.
I just want to see that somebody asked, Lisa asked, so it's not about ego, but the fear of doing something wrong. So, I really should have said this at the beginning. I don't know why I didn't. Along with that gift that God gave you, God gave that child to you. He didn't give that child to your neighbor, and he didn't give that child to a generation before or to a generation later. God gave this child to you in this generation right now, even to live with in pandemic 2020. So I really encourage parents I made this leap, right? I got on this Zoom without a PhD, and I'm willing to talk about Torah and neuroscience because, you know what? I can give that to the world because I have experience here. Hashem gave you these children. You are smart. You are making the best choices. There is nothing more attractive than a confident woman, right? Or a confident man. There's nothing better for your child than confidence. So if your insecurity is based in something real, ask the questions, reach out. You will have somebody, you know what, this is great. Have somebody who is your reality check. So you have this friend, mentor, Rebbitzin, whatever it is. You say, listen, this is what I am fearful about. And we could talk about fear in a minute. This is what I'm worried about. is this insecurity? Is this ego? What is this coming from? And somebody can give you that reality check. A friend can give that to you. The other thing is the flip side of positive intent is that fear thing. Now, if you're parenting out of fear, this is like for a whole other class, so I'm not going to go there now. I'm sorry. But I hope that helped, Lisa. Speak to someone, but have confidence in your decisions. God gave these children to you because you know what's best for them. And what's best for them sometimes includes asking somebody else.
That was a good follow-up question, Lisa. And just so everyone knows, we are going to try and wrap up by 9 o'clock. But if you do have more questions, I'll speak for Dena. I think we're happy to stay on and answer them, or Dena will. I'll help facilitate. But my last question for Dena is kind of to bring us back to why we're here, parenting in a global pandemic. And I know you've alluded to this in some of your answers, but what could I be doing differently since we are in this kind of time of change? And it is not just the pandemic. There's a lot of other big things going on in the news with racism and rights and I don't need to elaborate what's going on. Everyone knows the news, but what should we be doing differently for this time and age we're in right now?
Unprecedented times, right? So for sure, great things are coming our way. I like to hope. So great question. I have a few more things to say, but if people feel like they want to leave, you're not offending me or Melissa, you should leave. I mean, because people have things to do. I mean, there's like Netflix to watch. No, people have things to do. People are tired. I'm tired. Okay. So I want to say that differently is that if parenting is important and you brought these children into the world and they are your gifts, you maybe could skim life on a good day, and maybe you could just love your child to pieces and just with a wish and a kiss, hope they're going to do well. I don't think you have the luxury of flaking out right now. Be kinder to yourself, but you also, I want to say a few things. That first of all, this was our theme actually in 2020 with IJP was with the teachers, what we did a lot of our own inner work was that speech, deed, and action are garments of our soul. So that is an expression of our soul. So anything you've done wrong or you don't like about yourself, like just rip it off. It's a garment. It doesn't have to be attached to you. Recognize it, notice it, shuck it off. Don't be bogged down by guilt. It says this week's Parsha is about the Shema. It says, the prayer of the Shema. One of the words alludes to this concept that that you should teach your children like an arrow. What does an arrow do? Like the farther you pull back an arrow, the farther it goes. But where you pull it from, it lands. Okay, so if you're loving your children, if you're pulling back, if you're pulling back that arrow and you're sending it towards your child, if it leaves from love, it's going to land with love. Values are often not taught, but they're caught. So whatever messages you're giving to your children, they're picking them up. So be mindful of that. Be conscious. In Judaism, a scholar is called a Talmud Chacham, a smart learner. They're never called a teacher. They're called a student because we never stop learning. Now, all of us, we are not stopping to learn. We are on this path, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's not. But now you have maybe the time to be more mindful. You're with your children now. You got to know them. I bet you, every one of you know your children better than you ever thought you would know them because you're spending more time with them. So think about it. If you're the mirror for your child, what are you reflecting back at your child? Is it composure? Is it resilience? Is it assertiveness? Is it emotional responsiveness in a loving way? This is what she said when she did I'll never forget, the gal who did the conscious discipline thing at IJP. She said, when you teach your kids about calm, does it look like this? You need to calm down right now. Like, what are you teaching that's a mirror for your child about calm. Are you teaching them respect and dignity? So it says, like water that reflects the face, so is the heart of one person to another. So whatever is going inside yourself, that's what your children are going to see about yourself. Biologically, under 2 years old, you know that when you create your child's existence when they see you. And I don't mean you, your husband, loving caretaker, their teacher, but they need to see that loving face in order to know they exist. That's why kids always say, watch me, mom, watch me, watch me, watch me. Are you looking? Are you watching? They say that constantly because that reflects their inner. So connection is life. Right now, there is nothing more important than connection. It says that, Vatem hadvekim b'Hashem chaim kulchem hayom. You who cleave to God, connected, attached, are all alive today. Connection is life, okay? This is what we need from our children. We need to give them connection. And you know what the beauty of giving children connection is? It also neurologically creates willingness. And what do we all want from our children? We want willingness. We want them to be willing to turn off the computer, willing to come to dinner, willing to brush their teeth, willing to put on their mask, willing. Connection, this is scientific, that connection in the brain creates willingness. So I'm gonna end off with this, that we're supposed to live with the times. That what is living with the times? The Lubavitcher Rebbe said, live with the times. What does living with the times mean? He was meant live with the parsha of the week and make it relevant in your times, okay? So we got to be in touch with what's going on in the world. In the last 20 years, as technology and social interactions have dramatically changed, so has our understanding of the brain. So we need to use this knowledge in making our parenting journey the most smooth that it can be. I think our kids are going to be fine no matter what, but personally, I want to have a loving relationship with my children. I don't want the tension. So being conscious of hurtful patterns and our willingness to change those patterns is the greatest gift we can give to our children. Becoming conscious allows us to access our own wisdom and remain calm in the face of antagonism and disorder. It is the foundation of choice and change. In this week's Parsha, it talks about the Shema. I mentioned that, but I want to give one more example. And it says that Hafta es Hashem Elokecha, we should love God with all of our might and with all of our soul. And these things that I've given you today, and you should teach your children, these things that I've given you today, al levavecha, on your heart. These words that I'm commanding you today should be on your heart. Should it not say in your heart? Should it not be that the love, the fear, and the knowledge of God is in your heart? So the Kotzker Rebbe says that the reason it says on your heart is because we don't always have an open heart to learn, to love, to grow, but especially our children, right? With what we know about how their brains work, they actually cannot even digest a quarter of what it is we're giving over.
I just want to thank you for your time. Dena, did I cut you off?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Go. Yeah, we can hear you. Did I cut you off or were you finished?
No, I just want to finish this. I want to say that our children, it says on your heart because our children really have no capability of, their hearts are not necessarily open to everything we're telling them, all of these tools, everything we're practicing for ourselves and for our children. But if we place all of the unity, the love, the acceptance, and the tension, the free choice, if we model it for our children, then we're placing it on their hearts. And what the Kotzker Rebbe is saying, that if we teach our children well, we're placing it on their hearts. And one day when they're open to it, their hearts will open and everything will fall in. So that's what we're hoping for. That's what we are hoping for to put it on our children's hearts, to give them all this goodness and all this love and all this attention, all of our powers, so that one day they pay it forward to their families. And that's, now I'm done.
Well, those are good closing words. I'm really happy I didn't cut you off too soon. But I'll let you give a note at the end too. But I just want to thank you, Dena, first for your time and your wisdom and taking time when I asked just a few weeks ago to educate our community and all the parents here. And also thank you to everyone who got on this call. I know it's late, and I know oftentimes after I put the kids to bed, I want to go to bed too. So I appreciate you staying up. And this was so helpful, and I hope we get to do this again soon. So thank you again, Dena. And if anyone else has any last minute questions, feel free to put in the chat. But Dena, do you want to give a last word?
Okay, so no, I just thank you all. I think that I commend you for coming on. I wish I knew some of this when I had much younger children, but for whatever reason, things are revealed to us. Look at what we know today about bias and about prejudice. Just things are, I feel like we are learning more and more about the world. The world is becoming more open. The world is becoming more accepting. And I feel like, if we look in the Torah wisdom, like this is definitely the change that we are expecting, that is predicted about life, which is that unity that's coming together of a more wholesome and whole world. And us as parents, we can just give that over to our children. So thank you all.
And just one more thing, I know a few people got on late, and so thank you for joining us, but this was recorded. I'm not sure, Dena, if you want to share, if you're going to share it publicly, or we can maybe send it out to a few people who couldn't make it or got on late, because you gave a great overview on what conscious discipline is at the beginning for those of you who got on a little later.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Thank you again, everyone.